The Venatrix Australis was a Class 7 Predator vessel, home to the galaxy's most formidable hunters, the Carthaxians. With obsidian scales, razor-sharp claws, and yellow eyes that could track prey across 3 star systems, they were apex predators who had dominated their sector for millennia. Their young, the cubs, were raised from hatching to embody discipline, precision, and the sacred warrior codes of their ancestors. Then Ariel arrived. The human had been assigned as a cultural liaison 6 months ago, part of the Galactic Council's Interspecies Understanding Initiative. The Carthaxians had protested initially. What could a soft, clawless, fangless mammal possibly teach warriors? But regulations were regulations. And so Ariel came aboard with her peculiar human belongings and her even more peculiar human habits. Commander Thraxus had assumed the human would remain in her quarters, perhaps file reports, stay out of the way. He had not anticipated her befriending the cubs. It started innocently enough. Oriel had been walking through the training bay when young Keck, barely 3 cycles old and still struggling with his balance, tumbled over his own tail during combat drills. The other cubs had chittered mockingly. Failure was not tolerated, even among the young. But Ariel had done something unprecedented. She laughed, not cruelly but warmly, and then helped him up. "Hey, it's okay," she'd said, brushing dust off his scales. "Want to see something cool?" She'd pulled her hair back, that strange flowing mane that no Carthaxian possessed, and secured it with a small, colorful, elastic band. Keck's eyes had widened with fascination. The band was bright pink, stretchy, and completely foreign to everything he knew. "It's called a hair tie," Ariel explained, removing it and letting it snap gently against her wrist. "We use them to keep our hair out of our faces." Keck reached out one claw tentatively. Ariel placed the hair tie in his palm. He stretched it experimentally, fascinated by its elasticity. Then, with the lightning-fast reflexes of his species, he pulled it back and released it. The hair tie shot across the training bay and struck another cub square in the forehead. The struck cub froze, then slowly picked up the hair tie, stretched it, released it at Keck. Within minutes, chaos erupted. By the end of the first week, 17 cubs had acquired hair ties. Ariel, amused and slightly guilty, had distributed them freely. She had packed dozens after all. And the cubs' enthusiasm was infectious. She showed them how to make simple slingshots by stretching the elastic between their claws. She taught them trajectory, tension, and the art of the ambush. The Carthaxian cubs, bred for hunting, took to projectile warfare like their ancestors took to the hunt. Training instructor Vexar was the first to file a formal complaint. "The cubs are no longer focusing on traditional combat forms," he growled to Commander Thraxus. "They hide in ventilation shafts. They launch objects at instructors. Yesterday, I was struck in the eye with a rolled-up data pad propelled by one of the humans' hair ties." Thraxus summoned Ariel to his office. She arrived wearing her hair in a messy bun, secured with, of course, a bright purple hair tie. Thraxus stared at it as if it were a quantum weapon. "Liaison Ariel," he began, his voice the low rumble that preceded violence in most Carthaxians. "You have armed our cubs." "With hair accessories," Ariel pointed out reasonably. "They have turned the ship into a battlefield. Engineering reports that cubs are using modified hair ties to launch components at each other. Medical Bay treated 3 cases of elastic burn. The chief navigator discovered 12 cubs fortified in Cargo Bay 7 with a stockpile of projectiles." Ariel winced. "That does sound like it got out of hand." "Out of hand?" Thraxus's tail lashed. Young Keck challenged a junior officer to single combat using what he called human guerrilla tactics. He won. Despite himself, something flickered in Thraxus's eyes. Not quite pride, but close. Ariel noticed. "Sir, if I may, your cubs are learning valuable skills. Improvised weaponry, tactical thinking, ambush strategies. Humans didn't evolve with claws or fangs. We survived by being clever, by using tools, by adapting. Maybe that's not such a bad thing for warriors to learn?" Thraxus was silent for a long moment. "The Carthaxian way is ancient, honorable, face-to-face combat." "And it served you well," Ariel agreed. But the galaxy is changing. Sometimes the strongest warrior isn't the one with the biggest claws. It's the one who thinks differently. The compromise was reached 3 days later. Ariel would teach a formal class called Adaptive Combat Strategies. The cubs could keep their hair ties, but only for designated training periods. Instructor Vexar grudgingly admitted that the cubs' reflexes and strategic planning had improved dramatically. Keck became Ariel's unofficial assistant, translating her instructions into concepts his fellow cubs understood. He wore 3 hair ties around his wrists like badges of honor. The real test came 2 months later when the Venatrix Australis encountered a hostile boarding party. Zelthrian pirates, heavily armed and expecting traditional Carthaxian combat tactics. They were not prepared for what hit them. Cubs emerged from ventilation shafts, ceiling panels, and storage compartments. They used modified hair ties to launch flash grenades, create tripwires, and disable weapons at range. They coordinated in ways that bewildered the pirates, who expected straightforward charges, not asymmetric warfare. Keck himself took down 2 pirates with a slingshot-launched sedative dart before they even saw him. The pirates surrendered in record time. In the aftermath, Commander Thraxus stood beside Ariel on the observation deck, watching the cubs celebrate their victory with elaborate tail dances. "You have changed them," he said quietly. "They changed themselves," Ariel replied. "I just gave them hair ties." Thraxus's mandibles twitched, the Carthaxian equivalent of a smile. "The Council will hear of this. They will want to know how a human's hair accessories turned our cubs into more effective warriors." "Well," Ariel said, pulling another hair tie from her pocket and offering it to the commander. "Want to learn how to use one?" Thraxus stared at the pink elastic circle. Then, with surprising delicacy, he took it. Somewhere in the training bay, a cub whooped in triumph. The sound of laughter, human and Carthaxian both, echoed through the corridors of the Venatrix Australis. The galaxy's apex predators had learned a new lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon comes in the smallest, most unexpected package. And sometimes it holds your hair back.